Everyone. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Friday show with a grain market update from K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Shelby.
Dan, what trends in the futures market are we currently seeing?
Well, we're dealing with seasonality. We've had, for instance, in the corn market, some strength. When you look at the May contract, we had traded up as high as just about 520, closed at 482 and a fourth. Had been as low in the last 2 months as about 460. So I think most farmers take that run up from about 420 or so that happened in early March up to the high of about 490 as something very, very positive. And I know the upfront contract jumped up again to 490, but the futures have they were for corn futures, we had dropped below 450 for a little bit. Now we're up to about 466, I believe. Let me double check that. Right, yes, 466 on Thursday's close. So some positive there. I would say for soybeans, we've also had some movement in the soybean market. You look at the excuse me here a second. Yeah, we had dropped down to about a low of about 975 or so in the within the last several weeks, but they have ended up and come up to well, a little bit below 975. Closed yesterday at 1036 and a half. Had been about the 1050 within the last period of time here. When you look back in the history of during this calendar year so far for the May contract for soybeans, we'd gotten up to as high as about $11.11. So again, seasonality coming into play. We got some pretty good export demand, some worries about weather, et cetera, and maybe we'll talk about those later. But you do have that in play. And then there's wheat, Kansas hard red winter wheat futures. We've been kind of in this blocky sideways pattern, trading to the high side. Had gotten as low as about 550 for the May contract here within the last month and a half or so. Had and again closed at about yesterday about 557. Had been a little bit higher than that of late. So it just seems not uncommon now to see in the wheat market, gosh, 10 cents up over here, 10 cents or more down below over there, and just kind of a volatile place. And weather will come into play pretty strongly now for the next several months, the next several, well, yeah, months here. We're in April. In hard red winter wheat country. Well, the weather for the second half, last half of April on into May, June is just prime time in terms of what we actually get for yields. And it looks pretty dry right now for the last 7 days, but we'll see where all that goes. And again, we can talk about that later. So lots going on. I would say that when you do look at the markets and kind of look at the carries and try to see what signals are giving farmers or agribusiness, you do really see some strong carries in the wheat market from July to May, about 6 cents a bushel a month, 7 cents July to September, 7 cents, almost eight September to December, six again in March. So it really seems like a situation where the markets are pushing wheat out to the future, giving large carries, encouraging people to store and farmers typically, if I don't know that we have many storage hedgers that take advantage of that. They'll look at the carry and think that that's more of a speculative situation to maybe take advantage of. But boy, the grain processors, the elevators, they look at those carries and they see money there. So again, I guess we're in these situations again this year where do farmers, when they get the crop out and if they do see carries, do we do something in terms of storage hedges or forward contract hedges, et cetera, if they get a good forward contract bid that would give them some profitability. We don't typically do that, but in this market, given this uncertainty, it might be something to consider.
And what effect are we seeing on the market when we think about weather uncertainty?
Well, you see a whole bunch of dry, but nobody really worrying terribly about it yet. So you see the calculated soil moisture anomaly and in the United States as of say April the 16th, and you see really dryness all the way from the Illinois Indiana border and some into Illinois all the way over to the throughout Nebraska, down into most of Kansas now, up into uh, up into the South Dakota, parts of North Dakota, Iowa, mo for the most part having that situation. You also see uh, really other sources of information that we look towards are also indicating quite a bit of dryness. So we'll be able to plant. No problem. Get the crop in, and when it's for the most part, if it in dry conditions like this, but it will on the other side of that raise the question about having adequate moisture to really get the crop underway and go forth. The last 7 day accumulated precipitation, 7 days accumulated precipitation versus normal is if you have a really, I'm looking at a map, and blue color on the U.S. map is lots of extra moisture. A dark brown uh, color on the U.S. state by state map is pretty dry, and we are as dry as a bone. We're dry as a bone in well, basically anything going to the west of Illinois and all the way down to the U.S. Mexico border. For the most part, up to South Dakota, there's some wetness up in the Canada, North Dakota border, off in there, but. So we'll see. That can shift around in a big hurry, but pretty dry there. If you look at the last 30 days for dryness, really the state that looks the worst at this time is unfortunately ours here in Kansas. Kansas looks pretty dry, and uh, I guess that's why we're so focused on water conservation and no-till, or at least moisture conserving practices to help us grow crops in years like this. Nebraska has some dryness, etc. But I guess the game is on in a way. Uh, and hopefully I don't know if it's so much of a humorous comment, but man, now we're watching the weather here in the U.S. We'll see what happens when the crops get in, and we'll be watching to see what the development of the crops will be.
How currently is the cash market looking?
Cash market in that here is a little better than it was, not as good as everybody wishes it was. That's an honest statement. Again, highest cash corn price right now, $4.92 in Garden City area, and really Colby 452, Salina 450, 457, Topeka, Hutchinson 460, Pittsburgh about 457. So not a lot of different of change there. We do have the best forward contract price again for corn for a fall harvest delivery at 471, 5 cents over. Yeah, that would be in that Garden City area again. And grain sorghum, we have seen some strength in grain sorghum prices. Now you've got $4.07 in Garden City, and that same price in Hutchinson, Pittsburgh, and actually Topeka has the strongest price, 407, and around just under four in Saline and 402 out in Colby. So uh, that I guess that we're coming up on planting decisions. Which crop do we put in, and it's we have this perennial. It's become a perennial decision as to whether you plant under. If you don't have much soil profile, do we plant drought tolerant corn varieties or do we plant grain sorghum varieties? And so we'll see how that works itself out. But we did see estimates, as I remember in the prospective plantings report. This was as of March 1st, corn up about 100,000 acres to 3.1 million, and sorghum up about uh, up about 300,000 up to 6.3 compared to a year ago. So anyway, we'll see where all that goes. But again, dryness is going to affect some of those cropping decisions. For beans, have the highest price for soybeans. There's one that's over $10. Again, that's in Topeka and 1006. Everything else, the highest following that's 977 Hutchinson and 972 Salina. Out to the west, a little bit weaker. And then for wheat, again, our challenge is to try to see what pricing opportunities we have given again, pretty dry conditions, uncertainty about the wheat market, and new crop wheat. I don't know that many people have old crop wheat right now, unless they're saving it for protein or something, protein premiums. The highest price in the state that I could find was 532 in the Hutchinson area, 522 in Salina, 520 in Topeka, lesser elsewhere. And really, the issue now that we're watching pretty close would be corn versus soybeans. That'll be a challenge. So you've got again in the place where you think they're going to grow corn no matter what, out in the Southwest Kansas area, the ratio of soybean cash forward contract prices to corn is even two, which is strongly favoring corn. Where we'd probably grow soybeans, again, south central part of the state, that ratio is about south central and east central, 2.29, 2.7. Neutral is about 2.3, so about neutral. Again, so out to the west, pretty dry conditions. Out to the elsewhere, lesser so. We've at least the cats are thriving out here in dry conditions. So anyway, we're doing okay. So I one thing I would say, and our good friend and colleague Guy Allen's talked about it, is at how the lower U.S. dollar has helped us to help spur exports of some of our grains on. And the one that stands out the most, it's kind of surprising to see the numbers that came out on Thursday for the corn exports for the week ending April the 10th. Again, 74 million bushels, which is very, very good. We need a pace of about 52 to meet the USDA's projections. So that's really good. Sorghum's still struggling, really affected by U.S.-China trade tensions. The wheat numbers for exports just so for hard red winter, we need about 7.1 million bushels to meet per week, meet the USDA's projection, and we had about 5.25 last year. So last week for the week ending April 10th. So a challenge there. And for soybeans, we're still we had about 27 million bushels of soybean exports, but need about a pace of about 13.6 to meet the USDA's projection. However, that's kind of I guess fool a number that'll fool you, in that the US has a very narrow window that they're leader in the world export market for soybeans, because that South American crop comes in and just tends to wash over everybody. So you've got that happening now, or starting to happen.
Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much. Take care.
That was K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we have more for you up ahead.